Now we're in for it.
Adam,
Corey,
how are you, my man? We
I
should
am
be
great.
live.
We should be live or we are live.
We are live. I am 99% confident we are live. You
All
think
right,
you
good.
think I've done enough of these? We'd figure it out. So yes.
We grew up on this in the last 5 years. I mean, do you remember the time when we got together just into the pandemic and we talked to each other and we're like, what are we going to do? And we did that amazing webinar and like 2,000 people showed up because everyone was at
Man,
home. And
oh,
those were the
crazy
days.
time. Oh, crazy time, crazy time. It was the CEO roundtable. You can
That's
still
it.
find it on our YouTube channel, but what a crazy time. I'm like, what do I do? So I'm like, how about I just get all of my best friends in the industry. And
Totally.
I'm going to ask Adam. I'm going to ask Brian McLaughlin, Eric Clark. I'm going to get the friends that are all
Yeah,
the industry leaders, and we're just going to figure it out. Let's get on a Zoom, and then next thing you know, 2,000 people show up. I've only got like capacity for like 500. It's a
that's
total
right.
disaster. But I tell you, we figured it out. So well, we've come a long way, Adam.
It's true. We have. Now, are we going to use the chat or the Q&A today for everybody?
Yeah, so a couple of bookkeeping things to get started here. So first is that we are recording this. And so if anyone that's on here today has to bounce because you've got some client meetings, don't worry, we're going to send this out after the fact and everybody will be able to listen to it at the end of the day if you need to. So no problem there. We do have a poll at the very end as well. Love for you to hang out for the whole thing. If you can, take that quick poll. It'll take just a few seconds. It basically lets our teams at both Mobile Assistant or Asset Map know that you want some more information from us and want us to reach out to you. So we can do that. And then at the very end, we are gonna try to wrap this up. Adam and I could talk for hours about this subject that we're
And
gonna
we do.
cover today, and we do, and we
We
do.
do offline.
Now everybody here is just getting a little insight on what we actually talk about on a regular basis. However, the reason why I mentioned that we could talk a long time, we're going to try to keep it to 45 minutes today so that we have enough time that if there's any questions as we go through the different presentation that we're going to do today, I want to make sure that everybody gets their questions answered. And so I'm going to bring on Debbie, who is Debbie Arnold, is on our client experience team at Mobile Assistant, and she does a great job. She's going to keep track of all the questions that come in. And so we're going to, make sure to hop her on video here and ask those questions of Adam and I. And unlike some presentations, some webinars everyone might be on, these are not scripted. You can ask Adam and me anything. There's really nothing that we can't talk about and can't answer.
That's true.
If we can't, at least we'll tell you we can. At least that, right?
Or I'll
So
make it up, one or the other. I
all
heard
right.
someone
So
said something about that. I'm an expert now. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, and by the way, and so I'd be remiss if I didn't start this presentation with saying congratulations, Adam. You are in the city of NFL
Oh, that's
champs.
true.
And I know that football isn't exactly high on your priority list, but for something that nobody would guess this probably. I grew up in Iowa. I am a huge Eagles fan. I've been a
Mm.
Philadelphia Eagles fan my whole life, ever since I was 8 years old, and I saw the Raiders beat the Eagles. For some reason, I like their helmets. I don't know, but I've been with them since. So I really thoroughly enjoyed the Super Bowl, and so it's pretty fun. We've got a Philly guy and we've got an
Yeah.
Eagles fan, not from Philly, but pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
And
congrats,
it's great.
Philadelphia Eagles fans out there.
That's
It
right.
was a great Super Bowl.
We got our
Oh, there
green.
you
That's
go.
right. We got our entire city is covered in green, and that's not surprising. What an amazing experience that was, especially for Philly redemption. But yeah, it
Yes.
is. Everybody's still living on that high, and we have a parade coming up on Friday. They've literally let out the schools, so the schools will not be in session. They know
Oh, I
everybody was
love
going to
it.
cut school anyway, so I think they called it a snow day.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Let's kick this off.
Okay,
All right. So everybody should be able to see my screen. If you can see my screen, Adam,
I
I
see it.
think we're
I
good.
see it.
All right. All right. And by the way, this was all credit to you on this one. This was an image that you had put together when we were kind of collaborating on how we were going to start this presentation.
Hmm.
I'm like, that is perfect because what better picture of just what an advisor really must feel like on a daily basis of when they're trying to sort through all the technology and figure out where they fit in, where the human in the loop is. It's 100% like spot on for today's world.
I went through I use LastPass as a password generator, Corey, and
Mm.
I went through it today because I was talking to my team. 322 logins that I have protected with mega passwords. It just goes to show you've got so many different apps, so many different devices. And this is also what our clients are dealing with, right? These are our family members. They've got the same thing. I always used to joke that when you would hear about your local network provider, they're like, well, we can handle 12 devices at the same time. I'm thinking, I think I have 12 devices connected to my Wi-Fi that are on my person between my AI glasses that I have now and my watch and my phone and my second phone and it's pretty insane to see how techified we are. It's hard to understand where advice is going to lead with this level of
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah, 100%. And so for those of you that maybe just hopped on because you saw it was Adam and I, and you just wanted to hear what we're going to talk about today, we are talking about specifically the human touch in financial advice and in technology. Because when it comes to all of these technologies that are out there, everything that you're wearing and then everything you're interacting with, everything that you're doing to try to make your client experience better. Well, there's a compartment of that has to be the human touch. And so that's what we're going to get into today. And it's fascinating because it has been a pretty big roller coaster this last like 12 to
Mm.
14 months. The amount of technology that has hit the scenes that is it is in my opinion to be used as an accelerator for humans, not to replace them. But it's a big topic, and so that's what we're talking about today. And again, if you don't know Adam, like he's a big cartoon guy. He loves to draw, and so my guess is he probably drew this on a napkin one morning or something. But we made a slide out of it because it's pretty interesting. If any of you on this call have kids, I'm sure that this makes a lot of sense to you as well, which is that's how kids interact today. Is like half the time they're in the same room. Like I had this happen with our teenager one I had a bunch of their friends were over. I come downstairs and there's like eight of them and they're all on the couch and every single one of them is in their phone. They're looking in their phone. They're interacting with each other, but they're
Yeah.
interacting with each other on their phones. Like, are you kidding me? You're in the room together. Wouldn't you put the phone down and like interact like together? But that's the world we live in. And I mean, go to
Yeah.
anybody's house that has kids. I guarantee you, they could probably tell you the same kind of story.
Oh, it's totally true. It's ironic when we were kids. What was the version? Our parents came downstairs to the basement and all of us were staring at a light box, right? Called the television. Or some one of us playing a Nintendo and everybody's watching. So it has changed. Everybody's got their own little Nintendo in front of them. They're playing with each other, interacting, learning, engaging. It is really scary for most of us. I'm X generation and I'm thinking, gosh, this is what a playground looks like. And I think it relates to what we're dealing with in financial advice because the real question is, what is this going to look like as we grow older? Are our customers going to expect a fully digital experience where you could be human AI? It doesn't matter. The reality is that AI generated these images for us to really make fun of the fact that tech is actually infiltrating almost every aspect of it. I will tell you, Corey, though, I just had an experience. My daughter was in the back seat with her friend. My daughter does not have a phone at 13. That's been an intentional decision we made. And so, yeah, she's a little out of the loop, right? So here she is very analog, and her friend is on that device though, and used to being on sitting right next to her in the car. My daughter's like completely out of the loop. So when you think about how disengaging one person who has technology and one who doesn't, think about that from our client standpoint. A lot of our clients haven't fully engaged entirely on tech for financial planning, and you're very tech. So you're just inundating them with this digital experience when maybe what they want is a little humanity. So there's a real kind of interesting rub there where we're trying to throw an app at every single problem that we have, and it may need a human touch.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a good point. And I think this slide talks about specifically that, which is we think that everyone actually wants to have human interaction, and I think this is where today you put together some data for us, Adam, that I was really appreciative of because
Mm,
I talk about the necessity for human in the loop on a daily basis. I know that accuracy matters when it comes to data, but what you have done a great job of is that you've put some actual data and some actual numbers to these thoughts. And so this is just the first one that I thought was super, super interesting. Just the data behind, do people actually want human interaction, right?
No, totally. Absolutely. I mean, there's some interesting stuff here. This data I haven't seen. So I'm gonna have to zoom in here so I can read it. I've got you very small on my monitor here. Um, Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, the reality is that we're seeing pretty much across the board, there is this difference between, generationally as well as wealth, which we're going to actually show you some of that data. But it's true, as most of us have stayed behind the computer and stayed remote, we'll say. I think there's a really interesting aspect here. We should be asking our clients what engagement they really want. No question, convenience really drives things today. So I don't want to get in my car and drive to my client's place or have them maybe drive to my office because I gave up my office. So what's the environment that I'm creating? And are we creating one that is actually has the capacity to, let's say, even illustrate what we care about when we're not in digital, like let's say my background or what's going on in your life, or are we just really going right into the math of it? I think it's really important for us to be cognizant of what the experience our clients really want.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that there's something very, very smart about not just assuming, right? Not just assuming that your clients don't want to meet with you, they would just want to do Zoom. Maybe they do want to actually get together in person. Maybe it's not every week, but that human touch doesn't come from just, from just assuming that everybody has a certain level of comfort. Everybody's different, right? There are going to be some clients that really appreciate having the extra technology in front of them and having you show them visuals of the plan that you have, right, for their financial plan. There's going to be others that, hey, they just want you to talk to them about it. And I think that gets lost a little bit, where there's so much technology at the fingertips now, for especially for advisors. You can get caught up in the fact that, hey, maybe not everyone's that comfortable with going through all this data in a way that kind of takes out the human touch of the interaction. So super smart for sure. And this is another one, like disconnecting, right? And this is kind of what I'm getting at, which is, even though you have all the technology in the world at your fingertips, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should implement it when it comes to your client interactions. You use the data to be prepared to be able to really tell a great story for your client and be able to communicate with them what's
Mhm.
going on. But a lot of times that information is in the background. It's for you, it's for the advisor to be super prepared. But don't assume that it needs to be front and center and in front of that client for every different type of technology you're using. So
Yeah, gosh, I talk about this all the time. Do you know that my school has an actual policy against social media? We actually we've actually made this across the board because we have a belief system about what that focus can mean. But one of the things we are seeing a lot though is that there are enormous number of influencers that are hitting our clients, and really questioning their belief system about what's going on. You think about the digital reach of this idea of fake media, fake news, like who knows what's right anymore. What's clear is that I think all of us are choosing who are going to be our influencers. And I think it's a really interesting thing that we as financial advisors need to be really intelligent about making sure that we're still influential. Just like as parents, we're hopefully more influential than the drug dealer on the corner to our kids. How, as financial advisors, are we being better behavioral finance advocates for our clients? Because there is so much digital inundation. I think there's an importance about the fact that we need to be as present on these platforms as well, without, I think, becoming so disconnected from our clients that we're just a talking head. So I think there's some really interesting, as a recovering advisor, for me, there's some really interesting, I think, things that we need to think about.
yeah, and it really gets down to the personalization of the service, right? Is
Totally.
that if you because this is a great example of like that. I'll get into a little bit when we talk about what our specific technologies do for advisors. But at Mobile Assistant, we're all about the insights and the perspective from the advisor. Like, what did you think about during that meeting, and what were your takeaways, right? That's the personalization. That's the human in the loop. That's part of that whole process and that whole client engagement process. So you take that away and you just have a verbatim conversation that is transcribed and sent off into the system, you'll lose the human touch. And so that's, I think that's what this really is getting at, is that the technology advances are helping to for the advisors to figure out how to be more personal and personalize their message more, because you have more data and more information about your clients than you ever have, and it's because of the technology. I get it.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, think about even like Netflix, right? When you go on to Netflix, you see they've got now your avatars. So each of us can have a different experience. We are seeing that personalization at scale is a really difficult thing to do for most technology platforms, but it's becoming a standard. When we do an individual financial plan and an individual portfolio for clients, it's highly personal, but it's really challenging to scale this. So I think one of the challenges is that in order to simplify the process, we are seeing a lot more tech go into it. But the reality is, there's nothing quite that personalizes something like a handshake or like a component of I know something about your family. Like I know like how the kids doing, how's volleyball season treating you? Like what are you doing on your gosh, they're probably driving everywhere these days with all those kids you
Mhm.
got, Corey, right? Like that intimacy and personalization goes so much further than just putting your avatar on the screen. Like here's a picture of you. Like that's
Yeah.
not really deeply human, even though it attempts to try to be like, look how thoughtful I am. I know what your kids look like. Like that's different than I think where we need to really double down on the human personalization.
Yeah. Well, it's to me, it's the entire reason why the whole robo advisor solution didn't wipe out the advisor, financial advisor network. It didn't, because you know why? Because
Tell
having an
me.
avatar answering questions about your portfolio isn't what people want. People want that
Yeah.
interaction with the human that says, okay, you have all this technology, you have all these interesting scenarios that we can go over and approaches to different planning scenarios, but I want to talk to you about it, right? I'm going to have an
Yeah.
interaction with you about it and actually have the insights from an advisor that has been in the industry for years and has seen the ups and downs and has like stories to tell, right? And has interactions to talk about and has, history that you just can't get from AI. You can't get that from automation. And so it's the balance, man, 100%. And that's what this is, right? That's what we're going to try to dive into and keep diving into today, which
Mhm.
is how do you tie in the humanity with all the technology surrounding you today? Yeah.
It's a good question, especially if we're going to stay remote or if we're not going to get together in person. I think there's some really important, I think, things that most of us can recognize, right? Investing in the human time. I talk a lot about to other advisors and to big firms that you got to focus on the highest revenue producing time is actually, in other words, the best use of your time is actually connecting with people, right? We know that technology and other people that we delegate to are really better served by doing a lot of the busy work. But the most valuable work is going to be for us to be intentionally present at the most valuable opportunities. Usually, when you're making a decision, when you're collecting data, and when you're sharing the results of the analysis, not the analysis, don't share the analysis. No one wants an 80-page report. They want to know what's the heart behind it and what's the head that supports it. In a sense, that's really where they're trusting you. And we're going to talk a little bit about more kind of the science that what we're seeing in terms of when people want, when they want a human, when they want tech. That's going to be important. We'll reveal that a little later.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's dive into a little data,
Mhm.
right? And I felt like this was super interesting. And
Totally.
so love for you to talk about this a little bit, Adam, because I know this is something you've really dove into and really got into the details. And I think it's fascinating.
The geek in me actually, Corey, wanted to understand like where is the money? I mean, we've been hearing about this great wealth transfer, generational wealth transfer, GWT as we call it. And New York Times put this out in 2022, actually based upon the Census Bureau and some the Federal Reserve. Where is that money? And you hear the story, Corey, all the time about this 80 some trillion dollars that's going to move from the boomers to the next generation. The reality is that over those 20 years, is that the silent generation still has about $20 trillion. If you see that gray box at the bottom, the millennials have about 14 too. And this is obviously before the last year of the stock market. But Gen X has almost $50 trillion under their control. this is basically my peers, your peers in our 50s that have created some level of wealth. Look where the money is, right? Where it's in pensions and real estate, private businesses, equities, and so forth. This money needs to, be used, consumed. The boomers are going to move it or consume it over the next 20 years until they become the next generation. What's interesting about this is that it's setting up that the Generation X and millennials are going to get a significant amount of money. Now they're better savers than their kind of predecessors. That's very clear. Of course, they're better spenders. The boomers were pretty good at, I think, building wealth, and you can see that they need it for their retirement, Corey. But what's interesting about this is also that life insurance is not included in this. And there's another $20 trillion, we think, in the boomers alone that's going to move. So there's a
Wow.
huge money opportunity, right? So I think what everyone in finance is basically focusing on is how do I capture that money? Or if I manage it, how do I retain it? Because it's very clear that 70% of kids are going to fire mom and dad's advisor when parents are either incapacitated or pass on. And that means that there's going to be huge money movement. And that's where most advisors make their money. So paying attention to each of these communities and what they care about is important. What do you see when you look at this?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that stands out is I think baby boomers, and I think how do boomers like to be interacted with, right? Like, do they want to just get a report and have an app that they use for their investment strategies? No, they
Not
they
really.
need they need that client to advisor interaction and communication 100%. And if that's where the majority of the money is right now, wow,
Hmm.
I mean, we would be so remiss if we didn't take time to really focus on how we're communicating with that group, right? I mean, it's
Hmm.
but on this with this graph, it is, arguably the most important group because they're the ones that
Yeah,
are going to be making the decisions about the largest amount of assets that
it's
are
true.
that are under management. So
If you stay on this for a
100%.
second,
Yeah.
there's another thing is that we always talk about where the puck is going, but right now the puck is on the left, right? It is very clearly, and if you look at those micro boxes, you'll notice areas where there's probably a lot of confusion, right? We think about real estate and how to really maximize that during retirement. A lot of people don't really know how to do that. Like, do I just downsize or do a reverse mortgage? Or if I own a business, how do I exit it? Or how do I monetize? Or how do I sell it in the family? How do I protect it? There's some really interesting opportunities for us to, of course, have expertise around these challenges that our customers are going to have. But when you think about where the puck is going, what's very clear is the boomers are much more likely to hire an advisor when they get to half a million, $1 million of assets. The X generation will probably wait till 2 or 3 million. They're much more comfortable self-helping because they're stronger with technology. And so when you think about that, where is the market right now? It's still very clearly in boomers. They have the distribution problem, Corey. They have a lot of complexity that they've acquired over their life. They don't know how to really manage it. They didn't get educated. It's not like they had a high school class on like finance 101. So they had to kind of learn and grow and do it on their own. Really important for financial advisors to pay attention to what are those needs of those customers. And they're deeply human, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, deeply human. And like, we're gonna eventually get to talk about asset math and talk about mobile assistant and where you could put our two technologies squarely in the center
Mhm.
of this graph. And it's because of the ability to be able to share with the baby boomers, right, of what they have, right, what's in their closet, and what details are behind it. And that's what I think that our two firms are really built to do is to showcase exactly what do you have and what are all the details and what's the gold and the opportunities and the insights behind it. So that's it's good stuff. And we're getting there. We're gonna talk about ourselves eventually, but I still these conversations are so great because this is another one. Just like I love the idea of laying out even more data as far as
Yeah,
how is everybody working with these different groups, Adam. It's fascinating.
totally. Well, this is really interesting because we came up with this. So JD Power actually puts together an enormous amount of data for our industry. Most people think of them always as the car or that like, JD Power's results, but they have a massive team actually in financial services. And we pulled this data out of them because we thought it was so relevant for today. And it really talks about their study over, I think it was 20,000 consumers and their preference for having a digital on the right, a number 7 out of 7, or a human, all human, 1 out of 7 experience based upon three categories of, I think, service delivery, right? So, number one, did they prefer advice to be personal or human or digital? Did they expect planning to be human or digital? And service, basically taking care of the things that you've put in place, implementation service, right? And what's interesting about it, it's probably not surprising, Corey, what you see here, right? So baby boomers generally tend to skew more human, especially as you talk about advice. So guidance, deeply human. Service, I could call somebody or I can call an 800 number or, online. Gen Z, in contrast, is clearly biased towards digital because they grew up with it since day one with an iPad. And I think that that's really interesting. So the real debate is this, Corey. Is this a product of the fact that boomers grew up human and started with that analog experience and want a human because they have to make very difficult decisions for which they have a high cost of being wrong? And therefore, it would make sense why the younger generations would be digital. Or is this really a product of complexity? In other words, as our lives get more and more complex, I tend to want the validation of another human because I can't do over. And I think that there's a product of that why X generation is very much in the middle. I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Well, and I think I'd add another item to that list, and that is the availability of technology client facing. Because
Mm,
you think about it, 10 years ago, did you have the ability to like look at all of your financial plan on an app, right? Were you able
mm,
to see like all the different think about all the different information and data that you have available at your fingertips now? And like that wasn't
totally.
available 10 years ago. And I think that might have also something to do with just the you know the acceptance from the later generations that, hey, yeah, I can get a lot of this information myself, right? But I still love the fact that advice is still so important that it is still human. There's a huge emphasis on that. You can tell from this, no matter which group they're in, they still want the human interaction. They still want the perspective from the advisor that they're working with. They might be able to get the service like and have that all done digital and automated,
Mhm.
but I tell you, when it comes down to the advice, and that's where the human in the loop is. That's the
It's
that's the
true.
advisor.
I
Yeah.
heard it said this week really well, Corey. They said that basically the technology, the analysis is the commodity. This is where AI is going to live. The margin is in the human advice. Okay. It's in the
Yeah.
guidance, it's in the decision making, it's in the behavioral finance that a lot of people have started to pay attention to, but it's been true for 30, 40, 50 years. We just have a name for it now. It's really going to be centered around the human. Of course, it begs a question as technology does, impede into the business. Where's the human going to be relevant? And so we need to again double down on what we're great at and where we can delegate and be a good driver of that self-driving car to a degree. I still want a human behind the car wheel saying, okay, you know what, you went the wrong way. Let's go left.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Love it. All right, we're at the point where we can actually talk a little bit about what our technologies do. And Adam, why don't you
Humanology.
just
Our
yes, what
humanology.
why don't you give the CEO level
Oh,
elevator pitch for Asset Map? I'm going to put you on the spot.
that's okay. Look, I do this all day long. So as so many of you know, I call myself a recovering CFP. I'm still a CFP after 26 years, but I built a practice in Philadelphia. Yes, go Eagles. And that really focused on high net worth. And we tended to work on estate planning, Corey, and really focusing on how can you communicate all the complexity in somebody's life without showing them 80 pages of nonsense they're not going to read, right? They don't want they don't want the analysis. They want the conclusion, right? So Asset Map is actually born out of the need to help understand what's going on in the current state. Just tell me what the inventory is by ownership, and of course having technical aspect. That has now been scaled out and has a whole bunch of other functions that a lot of people don't know about, but are used by thousands of advisors. We just crossed over 2 million people on Asset Map around the world, every single continent, I think, except Antarctica. We have advisors. So it's shown that the real need to understand what's going on in your life is really the critical part we need to start advice from.
Well, I gotta say, from someone that's actually been through the process, I've worked with you to be like, hey, I really want to see what this technology is all about. I want to understand this. Well, I can say from my personal experience, I'm a very visual person. Like
Mhm.
you can tell me something all day, but I tell you what, until I actually see it, like it just doesn't set in, and I don't retain it. And I think that that is the magic behind Asset Map, is the idea of being able to provide visuals that show the clients what they have. It just makes it so much, I think it's so much easier to understand. I
Mhm.
don't want to read a 50-page prospectus. I like, give me like in data and graphs, and I don't want that. I want a simple explanation of what my closet looks like when it comes to my financial like livelihood, my financial health, right? Show me everything I have, and then let's talk about what pieces we should move around. Like it makes it so much easier. I gotta say, I thoroughly enjoyed the experience, and and I
Totally.
know that that's got to be the reaction a lot of your clients have as well. Is just the
Totally.
simplification of it. Yeah,
So, well, look, I
yeah,
think you said it right. And when since we're talking about human conversation, how do you be relevant? The key is, show me what you're working with. I mean, that's the reality is that an advisor needs to know the facts, and you do a fantastic job of taking the facts and the meaning and the purpose and all the humanity and trying to give it back to somebody in a cogent way that they can actually have a conversation about. We forget a lot that our clients in financial advice are engaged with us, right? They're interested, they care about it, right? They're having a conversation about what they should do, but their partner, if they have one, is completely disconnected, underengaged. How do you go home and actually describe what you talked about? Like, unless I have
yeah,
something to look, here's what we discussed tonight. We have this and we have that. And they're like, oh, thank you. So for the first time, we're seeing having a visual inventory, as you say, what's in your financial closet is really, really important because when you're trying to figure out a decision, what am I going to wear today? You go back to the closet. You don't go into your projections or your performance. Like you gotta like I gotta just do something today. What do I do? And I think that's the real key is where humans can become relevant again is by helping people make better decisions real time. And that's the key to all of this right now.
yeah, yeah. I love that. I
So
love
what
that.
about you? So
Well,
what do you what give me the other story? Give me the mobile
yeah.
systems.
Yeah, so Mobile Assistant came from my medical transcription company of all things. So if you
Mhm.
think about, 20 years ago, doctors were using dictation to document their client interactions, which for doctors is their patient interactions, right?
Mm,
And it had to be transcribed and done in a way that was incredibly accurate because you're dealing with patient records, you're dealing with life and death, right? And so that's the industry that we were in for years. My company was servicing just the medical transcription community for years. And then 14 years ago, I had a couple advisor friends that were like, "Why are you not doing this for our industry? Because
mm,
we are meeting with our clients. It's not life and death sometimes, but I tell you what, it's financial life and death, right? They're like, it's
totally.
just, and our time is just as valuable as doctors. Like we need to be servicing our clients. We need to be doing things that are not typing notes in every day,
Mm,
right? And so
totally.
that's what started Mobile Assistant. We went down the path of creating the foundation, which was the human in the loop, the human beings in the process. That's what we did in the medical industry. So that's what we did for the financial industry. And what's really interesting is as much technology has changed, right, over the last 14 years, we've been part of that process. We've been part of that evolution. We have kept adding different technology to help our contacts and our clients interact with us better and be able
Mm,
to make it easier to capture your thoughts and your ideas and your insights and be able to then put them where they need to go, right? So what does that mean? We needed to integrate with all the CRMs out there. We did that. So what we've seen is we were already on that journey of adding technology and really trying to evolve as a company. And what's happened in the last year is kind of turned a lot of things on its head because now all of a sudden there's been technology introduced with AI that
mm,
is a little bit of an easy button, right? It's like,
totally.
hey, you don't have to speak your notes and tell us what you thought of that interaction or that meeting. Let's just record the meeting and we'll
Yeah.
figure out we'll give you some summaries from that data, right?
We'll tell you
It's
what the meeting was about.
yes, it is the easy button of all easy buttons, right? I don't have to dictate, I don't have to type. It's just the AI will take care of it.
That's right.
Well, what's become so incredibly obvious is that without the human in the loop in that process,
Hmm.
advisors are losing the context. They're losing their insights. They're losing their perspective from their interactions with their clients.
Yeah.
And so right now we're in a really interesting time because we're talking about the fact that I recognize that that's a really easy solution. And there's a need for it. There's a need to have summaries from an in-person meeting with everything transcribed from the verbatim conversation. There's a need for that. There's also a need for the perspective from the advisor to make sure you don't lose that. All right.
Hmm.
That's where the gold is. And so I recognize that there's a really difficult position for advisors right now where they feel like they have to choose. And so
Mm.
we're working on ways that advisors won't have to choose in the future. But for now, I'm going to just go over that again. What is mobile assistant used for? We allow advisors to capture your perspective and your information from what you think, right, from your meetings. Adam, we were talking about this the other day, and I thought you gave me an example that was great, which was you talked about how you had an AI transcript of your
Hmm.
verbatim conversation, maybe probably a Zoom meeting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it put things in order for you, right? Of what it thought was important. And
That's right.
you had some input from me that I thought was fascinating. And this is where the missing piece of you in that process of you explaining what's important, I think is what was missing.
Well, absolutely. And I've been using mobile assistant for years in my practice, and I think it's as much as it's we'll call it compliant today to capture everything that was said into some, transcript. It's what's not said that is actually the human value here, right? It's what's the part that is missing, and that's the context. If you listen to my post meeting notes for all of my meetings when I was a full-time advisor, they were 6 minutes long. I would just dump everything, Corey, impressions, things that I want to pay attention to, things that we didn't get to, things that were not talked about. And that was either intentional or unintentional. And it was a gap or an exposure. And I think that we are now getting so into this, like, it's good enough that we're actually missing the point, right? The
Yeah.
point of cataloging, I think, what happened in meetings so that I can go back to it and I could remember actually the impressions and what mattered. And I think that that's where I when we run the risk of adding too much technology to the point of basically literally I'm not even relevant.
Right. And not only eliminating the need for the advisor, right, but eliminating the need for the data, right? The data that
Mm,
is, to me, it's the foundation. Like when I get asked now from advisors, hey, why would I use a mobile assistant instead of just like doing the recording of the meeting and like using the AI? I always go back to setting, you need to have a foundation of accurate data. Because if you set that now today, what is it
mhm.
going to be like in 2 years? Like these AI tools are pretty cool now. They do a lot of really neat stuff.
Amazing.
What
Yeah.
is it going to be like in 2 years? And
Huh.
here's the biggest restriction, Adam, that I see is that in 2 years, as the technology just keeps going through this incredible evolution, like the technology is only going to be as good as the data that it's processing, right?
Yeah.
And
Mm.
so if right now you're using AI tools to just verbatim transcribe your notes in a good enough way, right? Well, if you go to try to add some and layer on additional technology in the future, if it doesn't have a source of truth in the data, it's going to be useless. And so
Yeah.
that's the one thing I always tell new customers of ours is that you are setting the foundation for what's coming ahead because that data you
Yeah.
can rely on. It's going to be 99% accurate and it's done by a human being. And that's the human in the loop with mobile assistant, and that's the foundation. So
Yeah. Well, I think that's, yeah. And look, we could go on and on forever about this. I think that there's been plenty of hallucinations. There's been plenty of like, when you want it to be accurate, we're seeing a lot of these AI platforms that, we're being forced to use because it's just a scale, but it's not capturing. I think you're right. We have to remember when we arrive in the future, what are we going to want to look back upon? And I think that it's kind of interesting to say, how do I know that I truly trust this data? We just had a situation and I think we're actually going to talk about it. So I'm not going to preempt it because I know we're just going to banter on.
I know. Well, like I said, I knew that this topic, this human in the loop topic, was one that we could talk about for hours, and we have, like we have on our decks at night, talking about the importance of the human in the loop. But it is my new favorite acronym, by the way, HITL. I love it. It's HITL powered. That's what our like has become the mantra for mobile assistant, and it's because of the accuracy. You can only have this type of the accuracy that we achieve is only possible because of the human beings that are actually processing the dictation from our clients, and it is at front and center of all the conversations I have now when it comes to AI versus human in the loop. Well, what's better, right? The technology is great. You got to have that human in the loop if you want it accurate. If 90% accurate, if 9 out of 10 like words in a document are is good enough, then that's probably a good solution for you. But it's one of the things that I know. I know as the founder of this company, it's what we started with, and I really do believe that it's what's going to just make it even more important for us to just stay true to that value. We've never varied from it. We
Mhm.
had a lot of opportunities over the years to do it cheaper, do it faster, automate it, right? And we've always kept the human beings in the process to ensure the accuracy never dipped. And so again, we've already talked about this, talked about the foundation of it. I got to keep going here. We're gonna go into a 2 hour time period for
No,
this,
I
which would be
can't do
great
it.
for me, but I know nobody else can do it. So I'm gonna go through this. This was gonna be a fun role play thing I was gonna do with Adam,
Okay.
but I just want to show it, okay? Because it's really simple, which is just what is the difference between a verbatim like transcript of a conversation that an advisor and a client has compared to a post meeting documentation from the advisor. And this is just a great example. Like if I say like, Adam, like, how do you feel about your financial plan? Like, let's talk about it. Like, are you feeling like you want to be more aggressive in the first quarter? And then look at your answer there. Like, Adam, like you could talk about it in that way. And it
Yeah.
just, when you talk about it in ways that I'm watching you right now and we're having this conversation, I
Yeah.
know your body language. I know, hey, he doesn't seem like he's all that excited about really taking a lot of risks, but he's not really sure, right? If you just read this, you read this transcript. It's in your CRM now. It's been delivered, right? It's a verbatim transcript that was done by AI, and it literally you can't learn anything from it because what do we know here? He wants to be more aggressive, maybe, right? Doesn't want to lose everything. Maybe he wants balance. Like, where do you get the actual insight from the advisor of what actually happened in this transaction, right?
Mhm.
So
Good.
I
I
think
do.
it boils down to the context, right? And that's what, from the very beginning when I talked about what mobile assistant is really good at, it's we give advisors the ability to have contextual data from their client meetings. Because if you take the context out, you just don't have the gold, you don't have the insights from the advisor. But when I talk about like this particular scenario, like the example here is if I'm going to use mobile assistant after that meeting, what do I talk about? I say, listen, he's got mixed feelings, right? We're going to recommend a moderate portfolio, and let's revisit it. Let's revisit it
Mhm.
next quarter. And the difference is that's an advisor perspective, insightful, contextual documentation of that meeting, right? So
Yeah, no question. Right. And
yeah,
that is the difference. I mean, between, obviously advisors need to think that they can't just completely delegated this to like modern technology, right? And not, but the first run of technology is also, I worry so much, Corey, about where is this data stored? Like, I don't know if we can kind of ignore the fact that a lot of our clients, especially if we're using only technology that is, there's no human in the loop. Where's that data? Did you just get approval that your client's data is now in China? I mean, you might be cool with it, but do they know? Do they know that it's
yeah,
training some AI because you used a free tool, or you decided to use a tool that your SEC compliance officer doesn't even know you're doing it, but you're literally violating your own privacy policy and your infosec because you're taking the convenient route. And at the end of the day, you look back and you're like, I don't even know what were we really talking about? I see the text. I just don't see the
yeah,
context. And that's the difference,
yeah.
right? Where's the context relative to just the text?
Yeah, yeah. And listen, I could go on
I
for
know, I know.
a
I'm going to
long
inspire
time.
you to get fired up.
Oh man, especially when it comes to security, right? Because
Totally.
and we I won't get into it too much with what we do as a company, but there's a reason why we're approved by hundreds of broker dealers, and we've gone through the cyber assessments, and the data stays in the states.
Yeah.
It's important, man. It is, and it's always been important up until the time when all of a sudden there's a lot of shiny tools out there and
Mhm.
nobody's really knows what's happening with the data, but they know it's coming back and they're getting some pretty cool stuff, right? But
Yeah.
those questions have to be answered for sure, and eventually they're going to be asked, and so yeah, the data conversation. We'll do a whole nother webinar just on data privacy and protection.
All
I
right.
think,
Sounds
Adam.
good.
I think
We might have to.
so. I know. So real quick, how do we capture the information from our customers? It's through Talkit. So Talkit is our mobile app, and we use a template-driven process that's built into it. And so this is something that we implemented, boy, in 2017. We introduced templates. And the whole idea behind templates is just we don't expect our advisor customers to just try to remember everything. Like, why not have a template that you can have for every type of meeting? So that after those annual reviews, you have the questions that are going to be displayed on the screen as you go through your dictation. It's guide rails. And I know, Adam, I know you've used templates with our platform over the years.
Totally.
I think it's made a huge difference. But from an advisor perspective, did it help you?
Absolutely. I mean, the
Yeah.
challenge is if you ask me one question, I'm going to answer 15 other questions. But if you really want to know the answer to 15 questions, you better ask them explicitly. And I think that's the difference is so much of the time we see, an annual review. There's like maybe six things I want to know, right? What was the state of the client? What's the state of their attitude? What are the changes? What needs to change? What's it like? So I think there's some really important aspects. The fact that you can customize this and build your own templates as I did. I built my own asset map templates in MA. And then that's really, I can scale that out. I can have my whole team follow the same process every time, right? You want predictability, you create some process.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And when you look at the templates of just the examples here, like the Halista plan is listed here. Well, you're a great example. You utilize Asset Map. There are specific questions that you want to have answered for
Mhm.
those forms, right? And for that process. So you can have a template for that with all the questions you need. If you're a Halista plan user, same thing. They have two forms that require specific information. We simply created templates that are built into our Talkit app that are available to all of our customers. If you want a holistic plan template, we've got it for you. You want an asset map template, we'll build that for you too.
Yeah,
Has shared them with us, and so we make them available for anyone
sure.
that signs up with asset map. So, all
Absolutely.
right. So, Adam, I think we got like 10 minutes, but listen, I
Yeah,
want you
it's
to
okay.
talk about I
I
want
got
you
a
to talk about
picture.
asset map for sure.
Well, look, I think this kind of just sums it all up, right? I mean, very often we want an engagement strategy. And I think I saw this photograph from not a photograph, it's a drawing from how long ago, right? When we were all kids, maybe you got the Highlighter magazine or you saw this in Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know what you did, but you saw something like this and it got you intrigued. It's like a puzzle, right? When you start seeing something, you say something. And I'm sure already, as soon as you see this picture, you start noticing the things that are wrong. And we can debate what number seven is because nobody ever agrees what number seven is. Is it the ear? Is it, the fact that I don't know, there's no tassels on the like tricycle or what? I don't know, maybe the clouds should be complete. But the point is that this starts a conversation. It gets people engaged. And I think that's the same thing. If you go to the next page, one of the things that we have seen with doctors using a technical framework, like I mentioned, that MRI, or in this case, an X-ray, we all know that that's a spine, right? Like we can all tell, but a technical view can see something that we can't all see. So the key for us was to try to say, how do I make this doctor, this radiologist, you as the financial advisor, a great diagnoser of the current condition? Can I create a diagnostic tool that doesn't tell you what to do? It just tells you the current condition. And then you can decide, well, gosh, I see a lump or I see a dark spot or I see this cartilage is messed up, right? The key is I want to give every advisor the permission to see something, you say something. And if you go to the next slide, one of the keys that we've been finding really works is how do you create this idea of this original AI, Corey, which is advisor intelligence, and how do you apply it in real time in a collaborative human setting so that really what you're elevating is your own competence, your own confidence in the decision process. And that's the irony of just putting something non-technical but technically mindful in front of a client. And when it's your own, it's highly personalized. Like Corey said, people are seeking I want this to be mine, not some just generic template nonsense with respect to something that the client's seeing about themselves. You can have the templates in the back end, but for the client, they should be seeing something very bespoke. And that's the key to really elevating the advisor's opportunity to point out what's broken, what needs fixing, how do I fix and fill. And that's really going to be, I think, where we're going to differentiate ourselves, I think, is where humans can be relevant.
Oh man, advisor intelligence. I mean, that is 100%. It's like the human in the loop before all the AI hit the market, right? It
Totally.
really is. And what I think is so important to point out is that having a blueprint like this, to be able to have an advisor intelligently speak about it, right? It says so much about the advisor, in that I know the experience that I've had when I've gone through this with you, Adam, is like you being able to show it to me, and then be able to really talk about all the different pieces. That's where you shine, right? That's where the
That's
advisor intelligence comes through. But it starts with being able to start with something really simple, like just show me what are we looking at here, and then to actually go through it in an intelligent way. That's where the advisor intelligence definitely is going to shine for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was starting to see some questions in there. So I don't think we need to even talk about this stuff. I mean, I think the reality is that where humans are going to be more relevant is by paying attention to the humans and thinking about this, right? Like humans are still going to be relevant in that upper right-hand corner, right? When there's high complexity and there's a high cost of being wrong, people want another human to help make that decision, right? Think about that. Retirement distribution planning. I can't do over, Corey. Selling a business, can't do it over, right? Estate tax planning, no do-overs. I'm going to want a human who can help me make that decision, even though the technology might be supporting that decision. It's like, it's obvious, but should I really do it, Uncle Bob? Like, I don't know. I'm really the paralysis mode is still going to be present. Granted, I think a lot of people we'll all use technology to just, have something delivered to our home. A human is likely still going to deliver it. We need to kind of pay attention to where are the humans in that process. Is it intentional, and are we using it for our best use? I think that's going to be really important.
Yeah, and this is definitely like a product of like what mobile assistant does, and what I focus so much on, which is the importance of the accuracy of the documentation, right? That's our
Yeah.
one of our core values. So when you talk about the high cost of being wrong, like that's where my mind goes to those actual client meeting documentation notes, right, from the
Totally.
advisor. And like, I don't think there's an advisor that is on this call that wouldn't agree that, hey, they want to be able to rely on the information that they're
Totally.
documenting from their interactions with their clients. And
Yeah,
and at the end
absolutely.
of the day, that's where the value for us is. And so and I know it's still important, and it always will be. And just like the human in the loop when it comes to the advisor is always going to be important.
Hmm.
It's the same concept, human in the loop in the technology and in the advice that they're giving is always going to be a huge reason for it. So
Awesome. All right, let's be
yeah.
worried about this,
Well,
right?
let's
There's always gonna be, yeah, let's talk about the next things.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't want to talk about this. I mean, everybody knows what's happening, right? If you're like paying
Yeah.
attention, you know that these are the big things that are going to affect what decisions we're making today. I don't think people are talking about regulation and compliance enough, frankly, and I think you do an unbelievable job of setting ourselves up for success there. When you think about, this best interest advice, is best interest advice going to be parlayed not from maybe our clients, but maybe the next generation will look back and say, why didn't you sell my mom long-term care? You just cost us $1 million in our estate. Or why didn't you move this to trust? Or how come you didn't? Forget the money management side. That is going to be highly commoditized. And we all know that. It's math, right? It's algorithm. It's decisions that should be made on the fly at a low cost. Did you give the advice? And so if you have it documented, you could say, yeah, I talked to them. They didn't want to go forward with it. I talked to them about it. Like the AI tool is not going to pick that up right now. So the key is we need to be really thoughtful as to what we want immortalized. And I think that's what MA is doing. Mobile Assistant's doing really well. I'm abbreviating your name. You're MA, I'm AM, and that's the way we work.
I love it. I love it. Well, I want to make sure we get a couple minutes to talk
Oh,
to everyone about the questions that might have come in. I do want to leave. This is the last slide, though. It's super easy to interact with both of our firms. You can learn a lot of information about Asset Map at assetmap.com, Mobile Assistant, our website. We've even got the ability for you as an Android user to even get our app, which so we don't discriminate, but we do have ability to download the app. You can
cool.
download, all you have to do is sign up with, you can sign up for a free trial of our service to try us out. Adam makes it, these QR codes are awesome, by the way. I remember I had a technology person that was working with me years and years ago, like probably 10 years ago. And they're like, he showed me a QR code. I'm like, what is that? And now it's amazing how that technology, because the technology with the phones is caught up,
Yeah,
it's a great way to interact. So you can
it
download our
is.
apps there and get to us, find
That's
out a
right.
lot of information.
You do have
Yeah.
to be careful. There has been there's people figured out how to turn it into a scam too. But yes, these are not, we've tested them ourselves and we've used them and we put them up there. So that's that. There is a question that came in, Corey, and
Yeah.
it's interesting because Kyle says, and it's a long question. You could probably read it on your side. I'll try to summarize it with my Adam AI, right? Curious on your thoughts on where the industry is going, rebilling fees versus services, or versus a percentage of assets under management. And I this is really coming up, and I said it briefly, so I hope you heard me. When you think about the overall, generally 75% of the market right now for financial advice is basically monetizing assets under management. And that's not surprising. That's, people pay for, the thing that's most complex. Clearly technology is coming in here and wants the margin that we're charging on that stuff. The 1% fees, that they can do for 20 basis points or less. It's clear. Where is the margin? The margin is all in advice. And yes, I think we should be communicating to all of our clients that if you are charging 1%, it's 20 basis points for operations management execution, and it's 80 basis points for advice and making the right decision, right? Knowing which screw to turn is where the margin is, not just turning the screw. Okay. And there's a whole parable about that. If you know what I'm talking about. I think it's really
Yeah.
key that we always communicate, even if we're an asset management charge, that really the context is X for planning, X, Y for execution and or management.
Yeah. It was a great question by Kyle. It looks like they had come in. So awesome question. Well, let me do this. Let me see if I can add Debbie and have her possibly share. Let's see if we can share the screen here. Exit player. All right. Well, we'll get us back on the screen here. Debbie, if I didn't figure out, I'm sorry. Hopefully I can get you to if you can add your video and join us, great. But Q&As, if anything came through, there she is. Hi, Debbie.
Hey, great job. You both
Oh,
did fantastic.
Thank you, Debbie.
well, thanks, Debbie. Debbie, I know there was a little bit of Q&A. I didn't see a lot in the chat, but did anything come through that you want us to address?
Well, unfortunately, I don't see any. The one that Adam just addressed that one popped up on my screen after he started discussing it, but that was the only one that I see.
Okay.
So,
I don't think the chat is enabled, so don't feel bad. And the only chat between us is
Oh,
enabled.
well, that would be a reason. So, leave it to the two technology CEOs to forget to
Yeah,
turn the
yeah.
chat on in the
We don't
Zoom,
want anybody else to talk. We just want to talk the whole time. That's our problem. A couple
well,
dollars.
you guys are
Well,
great at it. You did really good.
well, thanks, Debbie. And Debbie, you're a great example that I did want to point out to everyone to kind of leave everyone with a thought, which is when you think about all the technology that's available and that you have at your fingertips, a lot of advisors get a little overwhelmed because they're like, how do I figure all this out, right? How do I figure out what works together, what integrates together? How does Mobile Assistant work with Asset Map, and how do we work with the CRMs? One of the things I always tell advisors is leverage the teams on the client experience teams for the companies that you work with. And what I mean by that is, Mobile Assistant, we have a great client experience team, and Debbie is part of that. And so she's the one that would work with you, be able to work with you along with other team members. But my point is like Asset Map does a great job as well, having a team that is ready to answer your questions. Both of our companies have over a decade now have worked with thousands and thousands of advisors. Now, what that means is our client experience teams have that perspective. They have that experience. So why not tap into that? Why try to figure it out on your own? Let us help you. Take care of of yourselves out there, and make sure that you're leveraging the teams from the companies that you're working with. Okay.
I agree. I think that's true.
By
the way, I just realized both of us wore black crew neck sweaters today. Was that intentional?
Man,
that's more interesting to me because I'm a human.
I know. I wonder if we could get into if there's an analysis that could be done on why you would pick a collared shirt versus a crew t-shirt. There's got to be something with our personalities. Yeah, there's got to be some personality.
Because I'm on podcasts all day long, and I thought I needed to look professional. I never wear this stuff. I want to wear what you're wearing.
Well, I hope that doesn't mean that you just care a little bit more than I do, but whatever. I think you look great. You got a great sweater.
Thanks, man.
Good choice. But Adam, I know we're top of the hour, so I want to make sure we get everybody back to work. So thanks everybody so much for joining us. And Adam, this has been great. You and I'm sure we'll pick this up, at a later time, just probably on the phone on our deck here or something. But we got a lot more to talk about, and it's going to be a really interesting 2025. So I'm excited to call you my friend, man. Thank you for being here.
You're the best.
And God bless everybody. Thanks.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thank you, Debbie. Bye, Corey.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.